Howdy everybody. Today I'm going to be starting a new sewing project, and I thought I would show you all how I go about preserving my paper sewing patterns. This is one method. First let me show you the pattern that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be making this adorable Simplicity shoulder dragon. This pattern has, I'll give you a quick peek. The method that I'm using, this pattern has individual pieces. It does not have multiple sizes. The pieces all do not overlap. So as you can see, we've got body parts and leg parts and so on. So I am actually going to be cutting this pattern. However, I'm going to be cutting it but preserving it in a way that will keep it sturdy for multiple uses. The method that I'm going to be using is not as appropriate for something like a dress pattern that has multiple sizes. For example, one of these, you can kind of see this is a clothing pattern. You can see on the close-up there that there's multiple sizes cut out. I don't use this method for this kind of a pattern typically because I tend to need to adjust and modify and cut, and I want to be able to cut more than one size and on this in the future, because we all grow or shrink, or sometimes you want to make the outfit for more than one person. So I use a different method for clothing patterns, but for stuffed animal patterns like this dragon, this particular method works wonderful. So what I'm going to be using, the supplies that you're going to need to gather are your pattern, obviously your pattern, a good pair of paper scissors, not your sewing shears, paper scissors, and fusible interfacing. It doesn't really matter that much which kind. I wouldn't go with the most expensive, find something on sale. This particular bolt happens to be fusible mid to heavyweight interfacing. One side fusible, please do not get the two-sided fusible, or it'll cause you problems later on. And then you'll need an iron. Now, two options here. If you're using a normal iron, normal, everyday, regular sewing iron, this is what I use most of the time when I'm sewing and quilting. It's nothing fancy, but has been going strong for about 20 years, so can't beat that. If you are going to use a regular iron that can use water for steam, empty the water out and turn off the steam if you have that option to turn the steam function off. For example, on this one, I've got a little dial that would let me turn the steam all the way off, because you're not going to want any water, any steam coming out on your paper pattern, or it will actually help disintegrate that tissue paper. I, however, today am not going to use my normal iron, much as I love it, because I have the Cricut Easy Press. If you haven't seen these are used a lot by t-shirt makers and folks who use Cricuts and other similar items to decorate things. It's an iron. This particular one is a large square iron, and check out the bottom of that. No holes. It's awesome. There's no steam holes at the bottom. Now, obviously this won't work for something where you need steam, but it's large, it's square, and it's flat. Yep, these are awesome. Totally not necessary. A regular home iron will do, but since I have this, I'm going to use it. So the method in general that we're going to use is, first I'm going to rough cut out my pattern pieces into sheets that will fit onto a sheet of interfacing. Then I'm going to fuse the interfacing to the back of the pattern, and then I'm going to cut them down to their actual size so that I can then use to pin to my fabric in order to make my project. So the only gotcha that I'm going to have on this particular pattern that I can see, where'd it go, is that this pattern has, I think these are meant to be the spikes on the back of some of the dragons. Notice how it's got a bunch of small pieces with a box around it. I am still going to adhere this one to the interfacing to preserve it. However, when I go to use it, I'm probably going to still end up tracing it onto some separate tracing paper, so I don't have to keep track of, what is that, 10 individual little back spikes of this size and 6 of the other. That's too many little pieces, but I am still going to preserve it. So anyway, here I am going to switch into fast forward mode and let you watch as I work. So sit back and enjoy the show, enjoy a little tea or some coffee, and let's go. pausing my time lapse for just a minute to show you another trick that hopefully you know as a sewer, but if you're a beginning sewer, you may not have figured this out. Paper patterns, when they come all squished up in those envelopes, tend to be very, very wrinkly. And for example, if you looked at this wing, it's all like wrinkled up, and see how it changes those lines. They would be very difficult to cut neatly. So the first thing we're actually going to do before we adhere the interfacing is to iron the pattern. Now I do this even with any other pattern before I go and cut it out or before I trace it. Iron it flat, no steam, just a low setting on your iron, completely dry. Iron it flat, get all those wrinkles out. That will help you get the best shapes out of your pattern. Pausing this time-lapse video for another quick tip. Make sure as you get ready to hear this, that you're sticking the fusible interfacing to the back of the pattern. You can see through it, so if you put it on the front, it's not the end of the world. However, I find that the markings and the words and everything are much easier to read if the interfacing is on the back side and not the front side. So you'll notice I just flipped mine over. That's why all my words are now upside down. All right. Back to the speed show. One more tip, I almost forgot. You will want a pressing cloth. This is just a piece of muslin that I've been using over and over again for a while now. You can buy a purpose-built pressing cloth, but honestly, any kind of piece of heat-safe fabric will do. Usually when you're fusing the interfacing, you'll use a little bit of steam. We won't be doing that here, so kind of don't read those part of the instructions. But the pressing cloth is important because the backside of this kind of interfacing is kind of a polyester-y fiber that can kind of melt a little bit. So just to keep it nice, we're going to use the pressing cloth to make sure that we don't scorch our interfacing. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that very quick video. A couple of things I wanted to share. I am using this Cricut Easy Press. I have not done this exact process with the Easy Press previously, so I was kind of guessing at the settings. About halfway through, I was noticing that it was taking a little longer than I was liking for the settings for the heat to work. So I went ahead and changed the temperature to 300 degrees. I had started it out at 250, which is the lowest this one goes. 300 degrees appears to be a pretty darn good setting for this. Other things you might note, I am not ironing it like I was when I was trying to flatten the tissue paper out. Instead, I'm pressing. I'm just holding it down and holding still and then picking it up and moving to the next section. That way I'm less likely to get wrinkles or bubbles. Anyway, so my first section of patterns is complete, and before I go and do the rest of the body, I thought I would show you the process from here because the rest of it's kind of all the same. We're gonna adhere the interfacing to the back, and then, press until it's all completely adhered. You will notice that as I was going along, occasionally my interfacing overlapped with my pressing board and it was sticking lightly, but that doesn't bother me at all. This mat is purpose built for pressing, so no worries. Just be aware of that if you're, depending on what surface you're using to press, that you're not going to hurt it with your fusible. If you are concerned about your pressing surface being harmed by your fusible, then just do a better job than I did at trimming off so that none of it overlaps the paper. From here, the rest of this process is pretty darn easy. We're going to cut these pattern pieces out on the lines, and just, again, nice pair of sharp paper scissors, not your good fabric scissors, because we are still cutting through paper and glue here. And then after that, I will show you what this looks like completely done. Alrighty, welcome back from that speed trip. Now I can show you my finished pattern pieces are all cut out. You can tell from the interfacing that they are nice and sturdy now. They'll stand up to some pinholes. I should be able to make a number of these dragons without tearing up my paper patterns too badly. And I wanted to show you one more thing. I don't store these back in the original envelope. I, in fact, tend to use a larger manila envelope. This one is white, not manila, but same idea. That will help me fit them in there with fewer folds. I mean, I'll still, like, this body piece will still end up needing a bit of a fold, but again, it's now been reinforced, so it will survive going in there. And then I tend to keep these separate in plastic sleeves in a binder, so I have my own personal pattern book to flip through. Anyway, hope this helped give you some ideas on ways you can make your sewing patterns last longer so you can enjoy your craft for many more years. And happy sewing, everybody. Take it easy. Talk to you next time.